Welcome to our next episode of Bible Bites. And this time we're going to cover Philippians chapter 1, verses 3 through 8. Let me read that for us now, and you can look at it on screen. I thank my God in all my remembrance of you, always in every prayer of mine for you all, making my prayer with joy because of your partnership in the gospel from the first day until now. And I'm sure of this that he who began a good work in you will bring it to completion at the day of Jesus Christ. It is right for me to feel this way about you all, because I hold you in my heart, for you are all partakers with me of grace, both in my imprisonment and in the defense and confirmation of the gospel. For God is my witness, how I yearn for you all with the affection of Christ Jesus. Now, there's too much, way too much to cover in a short period in this text. So I'm going to focus in on one important theme that Paul seems to be developing here, and that is the theme of partnership in the gospel. If you look at verse 5, Paul uses that very language. He's thanking God for the Philippians and their partnership in the gospel. And then in verse 7, he says that they are all partakers with him of grace. Now, both of those words, partnership and partakers, come from the same Greek root word, koinonia, which many of you may be aware means something like fellowship or sharing or participation or communion. So Paul's writing from prison. Look at verse 7. He's in prison when he's writing to them, and he is in prison because of the gospel, because he's preaching the word. But what Paul has on his mind is not the sorrow of being in prison or the inconvenience of being in prison. Instead, he has the work of the gospel always on his mind. And so here's what he sees as he's writing to the Philippians and he's opening his letter to them and thanking God for them. He sees that the Philippians have always supported him in this gospel work, whether through prayers, sending people, we're going to find out later in this letter, to encourage him while he was in prison, or through their material financial support. He knows that they are on his same team. They are partners in the gospel. They're partakers with him in grace. Now, notice this though, even though it comes later in the passage, the first reality is they're partakers together with Paul of grace. In other words, the gospel is what changed them. They participated in grace, God's grace, changing them, making them new. They were born again by it. And second, as a result of that change, because they've partaken in grace, they now became partners in the gospel work. And so when we look at a passage like this, two questions for us to ponder. First, how do we understand the grace that has changed us? Do we think about that grace, that free gift that has completely changed everything about us? And secondly, if we've been changed by this goodness of God, this grace that He's poured out freely on us, has that grace also set us now on a mission? In other words, does that grace shape our vision and our appetites and our ambitions? Would we be partnering with Paul in the gospel? Do we partner with others in the gospel today? Is the gospel what we are all about? It shaped Paul and it shaped the Philippians. I hope it will shape us too. And so that's all for today's Bible Bites.